Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 46 of Creative Writers and Illustrators. And my guest for the day is Payal Dhar. Today is out with a new book, the second book of a series in a very long time. When I say in a very long time, I mean with respect to science fiction. We don't have science fiction trilogies in India, and this one is coming out of 15 long years. So I'm really excited. Congratulations, Payal.
Thank you. These are the two books. It's not clear, is it?
Nah, it's getting blurred, but that's
No,
fine. I
yeah.
can my copy nearby.
Uh,
So tell us more about what this book is all about. So book one ends with Maya having the key, and book two starts a new adventure, right?
right. So yeah, book one ends with Maya having the key, but they're not really sure what the key does, and what is the significance of actually having the key. And so book two is all about figuring that out, and kind of at the back of it all, there is this Maya's fear that having the key somehow makes her evil, somehow makes her uh, wrong or bad, and she's scared that she's going to do something really like some kind of lasting damage to the world. And there's also that sort of underlying fear. It's the only word I can think of to deal with. So yes, it's a shorter book, the second one, but I think it's got more uh, action in it.
Yes, definitely. Yes. Now, for those viewers who haven't read book one, can you quickly tell them what book one is all about?
Sure. So yeah. So it's about this. Mainly the story is about this 12, 13-year-old called Maya and her two friends, Lev and Yazid, who are slightly older than her, and they are all they're training to be what is known as halvard, and those halvard are they are sort of guardians to time itself. They have to make sure that time goes on ahead, so that our world, our histories, that everything sort of progresses in the right in the right order. And in doing so, they as kids, adventurous kids often do, they tumble into this adventure because they discover actually a really old conspiracy, like a 2,000-year-old prophecy that details how some people plan to gain control of time in a way that could be detrimental to the rest of us. And so the first book is all about, it's basically about setting up the whole adventure and figuring out whom to trust and who not to, and how these the so-called bad guys, the warriors of the shadow, the warriors of uh, the warriors of the shadow are going to what their plan is. And there are a lot of questions, a lot of blanks that we as readers don't know, and the reason we don't know is that Maya and her friends also don't know it. So the next two books are all about figuring these out and seeing if there is actually any way to stop the prophecy from being fulfilled.
Quite relieved when Maya turned 13. So now she's more brash, more confident, and she has a crush on Owen. So, but when the book one started with her being 12, I was literally scared as a reader because I thought she was too little to be thrown into this adventure where she knows. I mean, she doesn't know anyone in the new world, right? So, what is it that you were trying to achieve with Maya being 12? Because when you say why it ranges from 12 to 16, what would have changed if Maya was 14? The book could have started when she's 14 and ended when she's 16 because it's a trilogy.
Yeah, it could have. I actually did ponder making her older, but um, I kind of also like the fact that there is that there's this age gap between Maya and the others, the other two. I mean, Lev is 17 years. He is just basically a few months older than, I think just a month or two older than her, even though it's not mentioned in the book. And I actually don't know, I don't remember exactly why I did that, but I sort of felt that in a lot of adventure stories, the protagonists are conveniently around the same age. Or there is a range of ages like 12, 13, 14, 15, like that. So and I thought that, what, let's keep it, let's make it a little more complicated, like Maya needs even more things to make her life even more complicated. So I just let it be. And I also wanted to see how she grew in a sense, because I also thought at one point that making Maya a little old. I in fact changed the manuscript in a couple of times. I made her 13, 14, and I went back to 12 and back a few times. I thought that as an older child, some parts were too childish, and I thought that, and she has to grow up quite suddenly, almost overnight, between the two books, because of the seriousness of the things that happen, and especially at the end of book 2, even more serious stuff happens. So I felt that the whole idea of Maya being thrown into this dangerous world, and actually a world of adults, would have been was a little more stark, because she was just 12 years old and she was saddled with this huge responsibility of possibly having this kind of very significant effect on how time works. I don't know if that answers your question, or if I've gone off on a tangent.
I think it makes sense, because the transition, you can't have a being mature in book 1, and then the space for the character's growth might have been less.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
2 books, but when she's 12, it kind of gives you the agency to show that career growth. So, yeah, right.
Right.
So also, what I found different in your books is the relationship between Maya and her watcher Noah, because in other books, generally you have the relationship between the mentor with the student is such that the moment there is a trouble, the mentor is out there solving problems or opening doors, and having the characters back. But in your book, it's totally different. At the end of book 1, Maya offers spirit and saves Noah's life. And again, in book 2, she's saving Noah's life and setting off a chain of events. We don't want to reveal the plot. So, what did you kind of think when you were creating this bonding? Because it looks like a father and daughter bonding, but he's out there, he's watching her, he's training her, he's giving her space to grow, make mistakes, and yet he's there when she needs him the most.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, because I mean, in my head, and perhaps it doesn't come out so much in the writing, in the stories, is that Noah himself has his own character arc, his own character growth, because he was being trained to train a much older ward. Maya should ideally have been summoned when she was about 18 or 19 years old, almost an adult. In her world, she would have been an adult. She would have been able to vote and drive and stuff like that. Instead, he's saddled with a 12-year-old, and he himself is sort of a watcher child, in the sense that he doesn't really know how to deal with that. So a lot of things he himself is doing, learning. He makes mistakes, like in the first book he pushes her too hard, and then sort of realizes that this is a child and you have to work differently, and then he asks for help. And so there is that one thing that Noah himself is learning on the job, because he's not been trained to train a child. And the other thing is that it hasn't been very long since he lost his daughter. It's been just about 6 or so years, and she would have been the same age as Maya is, and they just had a few months of difference. And that has to be sort of playing on him all the time, because he's seeing this young woman sort of flourishing and coming into her own. And I am sure that it, like, every moment that he spends with Maya actually reminds him of what his daughter could have been. And so so there is that. And he also, like, he in a way also knows that he is supposed to train her to be able to fight her battles. He's not supposed to fight her battles for her, and sometimes he forgets that. And fortunately, he has people around him who keep reminding him that, that she may be young, but she's also very powerful. So keep that in mind, and teach her to use it, teach her to, like, defend herself and stuff like that. Noah actually has a really tough he has a really tough job. And like, if Maya had actually been summoned at the age of 18 or 19, then that means Noah would have had a whole extra 6 or 7 years of training, and he's missed out on that, basically. He's missed out on the kind of support and mentorship that he is providing to Maya. He has missed out getting from his own watcher.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, in some ways, Noah is just about as green as Maya is in doing his own job.
One thing what hooked me in the book is Yazid's vulnerability and Kiliana's manipulation. As a reader, you really feel scared for Yazid. Yeah. So what was it that you were thinking? I mean, I'm sure Yazid kind of redeems himself in book 3, and he has a bigger role to play.
Yeah, I actually think that he's already redeemed himself, because what he does in book 2. I won't go into specifics, obviously. He he sort of knew that there is no way out for him, and that that he was, like, well and truly trapped, and he risked everything to bring information, and he was prepared to die for it. And he basically, I think that Yazid is he's incredibly, like, brave, in the sense that some people have this sort of like, physical bravery. They don't stop themselves, like, oh, okay, someone is drowning, I'm going to jump in and save them, without thinking about, I mean, they don't even articulate that someone is drowning, and so they have to jump in. He's one of those people. And I think that he also did all of this while being controlled by his watcher. His watcher was controlling everything. He was controlling what he believed, the things that he said, the way that his ideas were formed, and everything. And he was resisting that, and he was actually, like, physically putting himself into extreme discomfort to I don't know. I sometimes wish that maybe there was more from his perspective, so we could understand more about how he came to realize that he was being manipulated, and how he. I mean, the entire journey, instead of just seeing bits of it.
I'm sure we'll come to know more about it in book 3, if that is necessary for the plot to move forward.
Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. So another thing that struck me also was the world building of the new world, which Maya goes to. It is not heavy. I think the world building is also very tricky when it comes to science fiction. You don't want to leave your readers kind of unhappy, unsatisfied, but at the same time, you've not gone overboard building, flashy or dazzling things. So it's a world we can actually relate to, and it's just basic minimal stuff that you have added while the character kind of is an Olaman. So was that like a conscious choice, or is that a projection of your sensibilities as a reader of science fiction, that you just know this is just what my reader needs to get the story moving?
Yeah, it was, because I think that is one thing that often derails fantasy and science fiction series, particularly, in the first book, when you have to spend so much time world building that by the time the story starts, it's already become so tedious. I mean, I think I can, like, there are so many books where you are overwhelmed with the number of the names and the terminology and everything. And I already thought that there was quite a bit of it in there. So I wanted to keep everything else into a minimum, and other things come in as and when needed. Like in book 3, and this is a spoiler, which is currently in the works. I am exploring a certain aspect of society in Olaman, where, unlike in our world, we, as far as we are concerned, there aren't any people who have any, like, this kind of extra abilities like the halwa do. But in Olaman, this is common knowledge. Everyone knows that some people are capable of being trained as halwa, and some people are not. So how do they approach this? I mean, what's common people's attitude towards halwa? Do they, like, love them? Do they revere them? Do they hate them? And there has to be something. I mean, they can't just pretend it's not there. I mean, human beings are always very they tend to be very wary of, say, people who are different and others. I mean, that's unfortunately how we are. So that thing is explored in book 3 because it becomes relevant in book 3. So what I've tried to do is, like, instead of info dumping the world, I'm just bringing in new things as and when needed. Like in book 2, when Maya goes to a different city and how they travel and what it looks like, it comes in little by little. So yeah, I mean, I suppose some people would say that the world building is weak because of that. That you don't really get a sense of how this world works. But I mean, this is the decision I took to keep it from becoming overwhelming.
I was surprised to see the modernness of the gadgets. It's like e-notebooks, and it's not just the gadgets. It's also, there's a scene in book 1 where Ariba's assistant kind of asks Maya that has she started menstruating, and then she says, when you do, it's like, just ask for menstrual cups. I mean, it's like the starter kit does not even start with a pad or a tampon. It's straight to menstrual cup. That came as, like, it was like a jolt. Huh? And I think I've seen other books from Talking Cub, and I think it's somewhere with the something to do with the sensibilities of the editor, that she is totally open to conversations around menstruation. Just normalizing it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what I wanted to do, like normalizing it in everyday conversation, because I think menstruation comes up 2 or 3 times actually in book 1.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You also mentioned used, I think, is Christopher Paolini, one of the authors you like. You have mentioned Brissinger, and again, don't give away towards the
no,
end.
I haven't read those books.
Okay.
I was in the library, like my local library here, and I was thinking about that scene, and it just so happened that I think those books had come back from being, so it was in the desk, so it was just on my mind. I actually haven't read those books, if you can believe it. And yeah.
You kind of like the way the word sounds. That's why and it works. Because it kind of shocks the reader into just pausing and saying,
Yeah.
So, as a genre, science fiction, most writers stay away, right? It is very difficult to write. It's very difficult to sell. And I think that's one of the reasons that a sci-fi trilogy has come after 15 long years in India for young adults. Right? So why do you think people kind of shy away from writing science fiction? Is it because it takes too much of time? Or is it it's more of you need to work hard building your imagination and delivering something to the readers?
No, I think it's the nature of the market. I don't think that genre fiction actually works well in India. There is, I recently attended like a conference type of thing of other science fiction authors from India, and I was surprised to find that there are actually so many of us. And even though I say us because I write in the so far I've written only in the YA genre, but yeah, I mean, unless you are in in the inner circle of writing or reading science fiction specifically, you wouldn't know these authors, you wouldn't know that this genre exists. And when you come to young adult, there is an added complication because the young adult genre itself is it's very difficult to sell in India. I was recently having a conversation with an editor who asked me that why don't you write for like slightly younger or slightly older, because this space that you've chosen to write for is the one that's most difficult to sell. And I think the intersection of those two, of science fiction, fantasy, and young adult, makes it like even doubly difficult to market or to slot these books. I think what really does well in India, particularly at this time, is a lot of mythology-based fantasy, and or I think it would work, but somehow I don't know. I think somehow I do wonder sometimes how the series would have worked if it had been marketed not as a children's book but as a book for grown-ups. Uh, and again, a fellow author asked me that, I mean, you just happen to be publishing in the why have you ever thought of publishing your books as not for children books? And I said, no, actually, I didn't think about it because, and yeah, it just gives it such a and both YA and science fiction exist in such complicated spaces, and when you're writing both of them together, it just makes it really hard. Um,
And yet
but the writing itself is not the problem. It's yeah, because the writing is not the problem. It's the beast that the market is.
Yes. So you mentioned Doctor Who in the book, and the bio at the beginning of the book says, "You hope you never cross path with Ting." Now, I think in one of the Doctor Who episodes, Ting is kind of eliminated, right?
Yeah.
So what's your connection, Ting?
Did you see that episode?
I saw where he's chomping things. I've not
Yeah.
seen it. Please add.
Oh, it's a really cute creature.
Yes.
And it eats electronic. Yes, it eats electronics. And so, like, when I wrote on paper, my dog was the one who ate the notebook. So if I cross paths with a ting, I don't know how to say it, and it eats my computer, then I'm going to be in trouble. Well, not really, because I have things saved to the cloud, but yeah. So that's my one fear, that my computer will get eaten.
Oh God.
Someone once asked me that if there's an earthquake, what is the thing that you will save? And I said my laptop.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the storehouse of all our ideas. I think
Yeah.
every writer would do that, or save probably a portable hard drive. Now, right before the science fiction books got released, you had released a realistic fiction, right? It Has No Name, from Pratilipi. Can you talk to us about
Yeah,
that all about?
it was Red Panda.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, Red Panda. Yeah. Now it's Pratilipi,
right? But they are still
Red Panda.
They call them, they're still Westland, but I think it's like Westland. At first they were with Amazon, but now they are like with yeah. So yeah, so that's a like a book that talks about starting from scratch, like what it means to be a as a 16-year-old, which is already like, irrespective of what you are doing and where you are, you feel like you stick out like a sore thumb. And what happens when you are forced to make a fresh start, when one of your parents decides that, oh, you know what, let me just leave the big city and move into a small town and start a new business, and etc., etc. So, I mean, it's broadly about getting the chance, well, not a chance that you wanted, but having to start from scratch in a new school and in a new town. And the protagonist is also this. I love the protagonist because she is so sure of herself. She knows, well, she is a lesbian, and she's quite butch in her appearance. She like frequently gets misgendered, and because of that, she is particularly apprehensive of what life is going to be for her in a small town, because it's hard enough when she's in the city, when people are questioning her all the time, or telling her that, are you, if you're a girl, why aren't you like this? Uh, and and it's like she's sort of tired of having to fight all the time, and she knows that going into a small town will mean like this fight will perhaps be worse. But what she discovers instead is that you shouldn't go anywhere with preconceived notions, because she finds that her biggest problems are not about what she looks like, but there are other interconnected, complicated things. So it's just a book about I don't know what you'd say, growing up,
Coming of age.
coming of age, but not coming out. I always
Yeah.
say that it's not a coming out book.
Thank you so much, Payal, for being here. And
Thank you, Shyamla.
anything to add about your books? I'm eagerly looking forward for the third one. I thought Maya would change her main subjects, because studying, she's studying to be a logician, which is a very rare subject for a protagonist.
Yeah, but she's basically going to be a computer scientist. So,
yeah, okay.
I mean, I know her parents are very disapproving of whatever she does, but when they find out that she's actually going to be this like really high-end computer scientist, they might actually be happy.
Anything to add for my viewers about your book? Why they should be? What is it that they will miss out?
Well, I think that they should read it, yes, because one of the other things that's there in the book is, I hope that there's a lot of diversity. There are a lot of people who are of different abilities, different genders, people from different parts of the world, and sometimes we don't see some of these people, or we assume that they are not there, but all kinds of people exist in all kinds of spaces. And I think that's also something really interesting, apart from the fact that I feel, and I am very biased, that I think it's a pretty good adventure. And it ended on a cliffhanger. So yeah, you definitely should find out what happens in the third book, which is going to be called The Shadow.
Oh, okay. It has a name. Great. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Payal. Thank you.
Thank you, Shamla. Thank you.